Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode on 2020 Vision. I loved the title for this podcast episode because how perfect is it that this episode comes out on New Year's Eve, December 31st, 2019, and we're moving into the new year. You know, tonight's New Year's Eve. We're moving into 2020, and how perfect is that when we talk about vision should be 2020 and hindsight's 2020. And we're moving into the year 2020. So not only is it the start of a new year, it's the start of a new decade. And I really wanted to do a podcast episode and talk about that a little bit, and talk about that in terms of vision for your life. And, I touched on an earlier episode a few weeks back about, identifying one thing to stop doing and one thing to start doing. But I want to dig down a little bit deeper into this because vision is so important. In fact, it's critical when it comes to realizing, number one, who we are, realizing where we've been, where we've come from, but realizing where we're going. If we don't have the vision for that, then we won't have hope for the future. We won't discipline ourselves to sacrifice, to work, to achieve that future. But we do have to have some vision. We've got to have some hope. The hope comes from the vision, right? So, and vision comes from hope. So, drilling down into that just a little bit, I would love to just encourage you. Maybe you don't have time tonight. Maybe you've got New Year's Eve parties and you're going. But between now and next Monday, for example, or if you can't get to it by next Monday, make it a priority next week. But sometime in the next few days, let me encourage you to just sit down and look. Get your calendar out. Get your planner out. Get your journal out, or however you keep track of your life and your schedule. Sit down, take some quiet time. Maybe you need to get up early to get this done, or maybe you need to take a few hours for yourself and go sit at a Starbucks or a coffee shop. But carve out some private time for just you to sit down and review your year, review your calendar, review your schedule, review your Google Calendar. And if you're not using Google Calendar, I have to say I love Google Calendar because it gives you so much functionality on your smartphone. But that's another podcast. But get out your planner. However it is that you keep track of your time and activities, sit down and really look at your year this year. Look with the idea of a couple different categories, right? Get out your calendar and sit down and look at it. And I really mean look at it week by week, day by day. But make a list as you look through it. And in that list, you're going to have 4 columns, or, one sheet of paper, maybe 4 columns on that sheet of paper. And I want you to just write down 4 different categories, right? Write down what didn't work this year. What did not work? The things that just drained you, or that were drains on your time or your energy or waste of money. But I also want you to write down in the next column what did work, right? What was an amazing idea? What helped you grow, or helped you grow your business, or helped you move farther in your career? Write down what didn't work, the things that I don't want to do again under any circumstances. But also write down, man, this was an amazing opportunity, and this activity is where I knew I was fully in line with my purpose and my passion. I was, moving forward toward my goals and living my best self and being my best self, right? You want to capture those 2 things in the first 2 columns. Because here's the thing, if we're not consciously identifying what did not work, how are we going to know what not to do next year, right? And if we don't consciously identify, man, this was a good opportunity. Now, some of us do this intentionally or intuitively, and it's okay, whatever your preferred method of identifying what didn't work and what did work. I like to actually sit down and really be honest with myself. What was not the best use of my time and energy this year? And because it's going to give you more definitive information to say, what am I going to change next year, right? Those first two columns are going to give you a very important piece of information. They're going to help you know what needs to be different in 2020, what needs to be different this year. Now, the third column, write down any activities that you see or that come to mind, or opportunities that you had in 2019. Write down what helped you grow. What helped you grow? Maybe these were service opportunities where you got to volunteer, but it really opened your eyes to some new things. Or write down any activities relative to growth, like maybe, man, I read a really good personal growth book. You want to write that down. Maybe you saw some great TEDx talks, or maybe you listened to some great podcasts, right? Identify the things that really helped you grow. And I don't just mean the activities that were supposed to help you grow, right? I mean, identify the things that actually did give you some valuable insight or nuggets of wisdom, or just little nudges that helped you in small ways. It doesn't have to be big, but identify the things that really did help you grow. I've talked a lot about in previous episodes about my personal growth plan. Part of that is that for the past several years, I don't know how many years, the past several years, I have almost every year, I think since probably 2012, 2013, I've set the goal of reading 50 nonfiction books every year. And so that averages out to about one a week. And I talked about on a previous episode that maybe I should review that really hard and think about that going into 2020, because sometimes I find myself just pulling books and reading them so that I can meet my goal, right? And I want to make sure that I'm not just honoring the number of books to read, but I'm honoring why I'm setting that goal to begin with. The whole point is to grow, right? So if I'm just pulling a book out to meet the number, then I'm not really honoring my goal. So, again, identify what really actually helped you grow, right? I can look at the books, my list of books from 2019, and some of them I couldn't even tell you what they were really about very much. They just didn't really give me anything. Not that they were bad books, but I just didn't grow from them. And then I can also tell you some specific books that I really got a lot of really new insight, or a nugget, or something that made me change my behavior. I can look at those books and say, whoa, those were books that really helped me grow. Maybe I should look for more books by the same author, right? So identify the things that really helped you and gave you, gave you a return on your time and energy. What helped you grow as a person, grow in your career? Maybe you took a couple of classes this year, whatever it is. And then the fourth column that you want to write down and capture, what helped you recharge this year, right? What helped you refill your tank? What helped you renew yourself? What helped you, as Stephen Covey would say, sharpen the saw, right? Because these are activities that don't really just help you grow, but helped you become a better version of you, right? We've all got to recharge. We all have to go through some renewal. I can think of opportunities that helped me recharge this year. One that really sticks out is Mac and I were speaking in Seattle, Washington, and Boise in Idaho. And part of that trip, we took a couple extra days on the end of the trip, and we drove to Yellowstone National Park. We'd never been there before. And I think we're actually only in the park for like one full day, but we had an opportunity, it just happened to work out where we had an opportunity to stay right there at the inn in front of Old Faithful. And it was just, being in Yellowstone was just one of those really awesome opportunities to recharge. I think part of why it was just so awesome, number one, it was beautiful. We were there in May, and there was still snow around and even on the ground, and it snowed while we were there. But But I think part of what made it just so awesome, number one, is that we had absolutely zero cell phone service, right? And so it was kind of just really disconnect from the cell phone and social and feeling the need to be putting out posts and content and really just take a deep breath. So it was a really good opportunity. So that would be something that would go down in my what helped me recharge column. An interesting thing for me, I ran 2 marathons this year, and that would actually go in both of those last 2 columns. Running a marathon for me this year would go in what helped me grow and what helped me recharge, because running and exercise in general really is a great way for me to recharge. And it's important to identify those activities that help us renew ourselves, because it's so easy to get overwhelmed with all the responsibilities. And, if you're an entrepreneur, you're running a business, and it's so easy to get caught up in all of the things doing your business that sometimes we forget to actually take time to be, right? A human being and not a human doing. So, I know it'll take some time. This exercise could take an hour or 2, depending on how detailed you wanted to get into it. But it's going to give you that very critical piece of information. What will be different this year? And then what will be your plan to grow in 2020? That's going to be key. Right? Maybe your goal isn't to read 50 nonfiction books, and that's okay. Maybe you are more into podcasts or audiobooks or watching documentaries, Just identify what your plan to grow is going to be this year. What's your plan to grow yourself? What's your plan to grow your business? How are you intentionally going to grow yourself so that you can further whatever it is you're doing, your career, your business, whatever it is. This applies whether you are a stay-at-home mom or the CEO of a multi-million-dollar business, right? What's your plan to grow? Because if you don't grow yourself, you can't really maximize your growth in your business, or maximize your growth in your career, or maximize your growth for your kids, right? It starts with you. You've got to have a plan to grow and develop yourself, because here's the thing. Knowledge will transform your life if you apply it. It's not enough just to know it, right? We do have to do it, but if we don't know it, we can't apply it. And I guarantee you there is knowledge out there. It's probably free on the internet, right? There's so much. We're in the information age. There is so much knowledge out there. There's so many books and podcasts and TEDx talks and things like that. There's so many ways to grow. There's so much information out there. And there are things that you need to know to move forward in life. There are things that you need to learn and then apply. I know there are. I know there are things that I need to learn and apply. That's why I read 50 books every year, because I know there's so many things out there that I don't know. Because here's the deal. When we grow ourselves, grow our character, grow our awareness about ourselves or how the world works, we think differently. And I've talked about before, when we think differently, we feel differently, we act differently, and we get different results in life. Because here's how you can validate this. Think back to when you were a teenager, maybe when you were 14 or 15 or 16. And I guarantee you think different thoughts than you did when you were 14 and 15 and 16. I guarantee it. You've grown since then, right? Your awareness of yourself has grown. Your awareness of how the world works has grown. Maybe you're a parent of teenagers yourself at this point, and you can see that you think a whole lot different now than you did back then. If you have teenagers yourself, you really know this, because when you're 14 and 15 and 16 or 17, 18, 28, right? Sometimes we think we know it all relative to how the world works. And I can remember thinking nobody could tell me much. Older people would maybe give you some great advice and you'd be like, yeah, but you don't know my story, or what do you know? And then you get older and you realize that they actually had some wisdom in whatever they were advising you on. And my point here is that when we grow ourselves, And maybe you've just grown in a little bit accidentally in the last few years. But when we get really intentional about growing ourselves, we learn some of that knowledge we were just in the past we were not aware of. But if we don't learn it, we can't apply it, and knowledge will transform your life. I can think of so many ways that this has proven true for me. Nutrition, right? About a year and a half ago, Mac and I had no really awareness of juicing to increase our health, right? Juicing vegetables and some fruits and just fresh juice to be able to increase our nutrition and some vitamins and all of those good things in fruits and vegetables. And I can see that once I learned that knowledge, but then started applying it and started juicing regularly, I can see how much better my nutrition has been. In the past, it's been a little over a year since we started juicing, but a year and a half ago, I had no knowledge of that. But today, it's really transformed my health, and not in major ways. Like I can't point to huge, huge major breakthroughs for my health, but it's all of the small things that I can point to. And I have taken an allergy pill for years and years and years, every day from like February to October, because if I didn't, I suffered from allergies. I'd get sinus infections. I'd be back in the doctor's office. And I realized that after I started juicing, I think I took less than 5 allergy pills this whole year. Now, that's doesn't sound like a big transformation to you, but let me tell you, to not have to suffer with stuffy nose and sinuses and headaches, that's transformational for me, right? I can think better, I can feel better, I can be better when I feel better, right? So that really is, for me, that's transformational. But that knowledge was out there for years, and I had no clue. Juicing's been around for years and years and years, decades. But I didn't know that knowledge, and until I acquired that knowledge and applied that knowledge, it didn't do me any good. So you got to figure out what's your plan to grow, because there aren't any excuses, right? Information is out there. You don't have to spend any money. You can just get on Google and start reading and learning. You can go to the library and get a free library card and use their computers for free, right? You don't even have to sit at home or have a laptop at home. If you're listening to this on your smartphone, you've got the internet right there. It's just, we sometimes we get stuck, right? Sometimes we're not really happy with where we are, but we don't really know how to get out of the situation. But if we're not growing, it's going to be much more difficult, right? You're not going to find all the answers in one book. You're not going to find all the answers in one podcast episode, but until you start really getting intentional with growth, it's going to be difficult to maximize your growth in your business or your career or your life, right? You can't maximize your results in life if you are not learning and growing. You've got to be growth focused. And so I know I've kind of gotten on a soapbox a little bit about that, but I get so passionate about this because, and let me tell you, we are our own biggest enemy when it comes to this, right? There are some of you, I guarantee, listening to this podcast thinking, well, that's great. That's easy for you to say I should read a book every month or a couple of books a year or listen to a podcast. But I'm busy. I've got kids and I got a job and I got to get groceries and, it's easy for you. I guarantee you there are some people listening to this podcast right now who are thinking, well, yeah, that sounds easy for you to say, but I'm not a motivational leadership speaker, so I don't have time to grow. I see we are our own biggest enemy. And I say this because I know I do it too. I catch myself using an excuse or turning myself into a victim. I can't do this because I can't grow because I don't have money for books, or I can't grow because I don't have time to read, or maybe I have small children and so I don't have time to watch a TEDx video online. Stop making the excuses, right? We are our biggest obstacle when it comes to this. We are so good at creating excuses in our life. And I've probably shared the story before of catching myself blaming the weather a course change in a marathon for why I didn't come in 5 seconds faster. Right? I really did that. I really actually blamed the weather and a course change in a race for why I didn't come in 5 seconds faster in a marathon. 5 seconds in a marathon is nothing. And yet I fell into that victim mindset. I call it the victim mindset. The minute we start blaming someone or something else for why we can't do something is the minute we give away our ability to improve it. And I know it's easy to think about, or easy to say, well, it's easy for you to say. But remember where I came from, right? I mean, at 19, I left home. I didn't have a job or money. I didn't have a high school diploma. I'd been homeschooled, so I'd never been to school, really. And the only job I could get after I left was working in Pizza Hut, making $2.13 an hour to bus dirty tables and pick up half-eaten pizza crust off the floor while people would drop them and not pick them up. And then I'd bust the table and I'd take the dishes back and I'd have to wash them. And when you think about that and think about how far I've come, I guarantee you the only way I've been able to get to where I am today, traveling all over the country. Mac and I go all over the country. We speak to conferences and training groups, but the only way I could get from there to here is to grow. Now back then, I didn't know any other way to grow than to, start taking a couple of classes at the community college and go get a degree, and that's okay. That's one way to grow, certainly. But I'm also talking about growing yourself and your character. And for me, the best way to do that is to read. I like to actually get a physical book so that I can underline quotes. I can think about them. You find your way. Maybe books and reading doesn't work for you. But I know you're interested in improving your life and improving your circumstances, or you wouldn't be listening to this podcast, right? And I'm just here to tell you that you've got to continue to grow yourself, and you've got to be intentional about it, because it might happen a little bit by accident, but mostly we have to be intentional. It's kind of like fitness. It's pretty much not going to happen unless you get very intentional about it, whether that's carving out time in your calendar this year, committing to reading a book and carrying through with it, right? You've got to have a plan for growing. When it comes to 2020 vision, hindsight's 2020, right? Don't go this whole year and look back on New Year's Eve of 2020 and say, wow, hindsight's 2020. I wish I had grown more. Don't do that. Don't let a whole year go by without intentionally growing yourself, because you don't know what things are possible until you start growing, right? I had no clue. If you had told me at 19 when I was working in Pizza Hut and Pizza Hut, there was nothing wrong with it. It was glamorous. It was not glamorous work, right? But I was proud to get it. It was hard work and putting up with frustrated customers, and sometimes you get busy and just dealing with all of the things. And there's nothing glamorous or exciting about getting down on your hands and knees and sweeping up pizza crust pieces off the floor, right? That's pretty humbling, but I was proud to get it. But if you had told me back then that years later I would be a leadership speaker and author of 11 books and 6 journals, and this would be the life that I was living, I wouldn't have believed you, right? Until I started growing, I had no awareness of just what things were possible. So I know I've said it several times in several different ways in this episode, but I just get so excited about it because we can maximize our results in life, right? We can increase our influence, develop our leadership, improve our circumstances at work, at home, in our community, but we've got to grow in order to get there. Really looking forward to 2020 and all of the things that are coming up in the podcast, and I've already got a list of great topics. Hey, if you want to hear a podcast on a specific topic, shoot me a private message, send me an email, ria@riastory.com, and let me know. Because here's the thing, if we don't go out and grow and learn it's going to be so much more difficult to reach our goals, to reach our results in life. Until next time. Hello, everyone. Thanks for listening to today's episode on 2020 Vision. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some nuggets or some takeaways that will help you make 2020 your best year ever. I know I got a little fired up there toward the end talking about growth, but it's because I get so excited about your potential and what you can do, because I've seen it. I've lived these principles. I know they work. But hey, if you found value in this episode, do me a favor, screenshot it, post it jump on social and post it, tag me and let me know, hey, what you enjoyed about it, what you found value in, what you took away, but do your friends a favor too, right? Because if you found a nugget in this episode, if this was really valuable for you, it's going to help you live your best year ever in 2020, then share it and talk about it, because you want to see the people that you do life with grow too, right? It's not just about being growth oriented for ourselves, but be a river, pass along something that you found value in, not just my podcast episodes, but anything that you really grow from or found value in. But if you found value in it, quick screenshot and share it, talk about it, and let other people know. Be a river and not a reservoir.